This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. When you feel like your best, fam, you can do anything. You can accomplish all those goals in your life, make sure your family's good, and even start, who knows, a mildly successful podcast. Sometimes life gets you bogged down. You might feel overwhelmed. You're not showing up every day the way that you want to. But working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you. Because when you feel empowered, you're more prepared to take on everything that life throws at you. The benefits of therapy are endless. It's great to just check in with somebody who can give you some perspective on life. Make sure that you're meeting all the goals that you set for yourself in life. So whether or not you've been in therapy, now could be the time to give BetterHelp a shot. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. Just fill out their brief questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Couldn't be easier. If you want an empowered life, therapy can get you there. So visit BetterHelp.com/madaboutmovies today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/madaboutmovies. Ladies and gentlemen, it's gonna rain. I'm Kent Garrison.
I'm Brian Gill.
And I'm Richard Barton.
And this is Mad
About
Movie.
Da, 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 da! You sound insane. You realize that? Yeah. The whole world gone crazy! Seriously? Yeah. It's showtime.
That's fun. Mad About Movies is your go-to podcast for all things concerning the world of cinema. We give you movie news, movie rumors, and those all-important movie rumblings, all before we break down our chosen movie of the week. But don't worry, we will give you warning before we head into spoiler territory. And stick around for the end of our show when we give you our weekly recommend, something that you need to get out and get your hands on ASAP. This week's movie of the week is what, Richard?
This week's movie of the week is Darren Aronofsky's Noah.
My father said that one day, if man continued in his ways, the Creator would annihilate this world.
Can it not be averted?
He speaks to you. You must trust that he speaks in a way that you can understand.
I saw water. Death by water. That's on your life.
So guys, Noah, first of many biblical epics we're going to be watching and reviewing over the next couple of years. The first biblical epic of 2014. The next one comes out this fall, and it's Ridley Scott's Exodus, which covers the story of the book of Exodus and Moses. But if this movie, Noah, is any indication, it looks like we're going to get a lot more of these biblical epics, because this movie made a ton of money last weekend.
I would say that the kind of... I would not be surprised if the kind of religious arguments surrounding the movie were placed by Paramount. Or was it Paramount that produced this?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
To kind of drum up some interest in the movie.
Yeah.
Would that shock either of you?
No, it wouldn't at all. And it's a question of how much did they think this was going to make? Like, surely they thought this was going to be a big movie. But It made $40 million, and they were like, well, it surpassed all of our expectations for what we thought it was going to do. Like, I saw the trailer and saw who was in it and the director and the buzz. I knew this was going to be a hit from just the general buzz about the movie and the controversy as well, Richard. That's a good point. They probably did plant a certain amount of that controversy. It does work. It does get people to the box office. And it surely did work last weekend. So I'm looking forward to talking Noah with you guys.
Movie news,
Yes!
rumors, and rumblings.
That's awesome!
Let the filibustering begin.
Do you guys have anything you want to bring up for movie news, rumors, rumblings?
I have some stories.
Okay.
We got some more information this week on the new kind of Harry Potter sub-universe, spin-off universe.
Yeah.
Let me get my wand out.
I know Brian is wetting the bed right now.
Yeah.
So what are your guys' thoughts, Ken? What are you're the movie news kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure. Well, my immediate thoughts is I don't give a crap because I haven't seen all but one of the Harry Potters. I've only seen one Harry Potter movie.
Wow.
It was the very first one.
What?
Yeah. I just haven't got... Honestly, man, it's not that I'm against Harry Potter in any way. It's not that I don't have the desire to see the movies. It's just that I literally haven't seen them. My family or my sister got like the Blu-ray set for her birthday or something a couple years back, and I borrowed them and watched the first one and just didn't watch the rest. I don't know why. It's not that I didn't think it was good, because I enjoyed the first one, and I definitely think that I would have enjoyed the others. But it's literally just something that I haven't gotten around to doing yet. So I'm probably the last person that you need to ask on this podcast about Harry Potter.
I'm kind of I'm in shock right now, aren't you?
I
A little
know.
bit?
Yeah.
I know. There's really no excuse
Man,
for that.
You've got an assignment for the next few days.
Yeah.
No, I will. And I plan on seeing them. And, I know the whole story and everything. I'm familiar with it, but I just haven't gotten around. There's 8 movies. So it's one of those things where I have to like block out an amount of time to watch them all. And
Coming
stuff like
from
that.
the guy who watched House of Cards in one day. Season 2.
Yeah, well, I had to. I mean, I had no option, really. I had to watch House of Cards in 24 hours. But, Brian, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I read the reports, and J.K. Rowling's involved. I mean, she's going to be actively involved. She's writing the script, so that's a good start, I think. I love the Harry Potter universe. I'm a 31-year-old male who's not afraid to admit that. I read those books. I probably read the books 3 or 4 times, and I will probably read them again later this year. I love them.
You've been to Harry Potter Land?
I have been to Harry Potter Land. You're correct. I love the movies. I think the movies are the perfect example of how to adapt a beloved series of novels. I think, man, they do a great job with those films. They've got great source material to take from, but
that and Host, I would say.
Sure. Wonderful source material there as well.
No, you're right.
No, I'm stoked about this. It sounds like a cool idea. I think this is a good way to, because it looks like it's going to be set, from what I read, it's like 70 years before Harry Potter makes his way into Hogwarts. So, but it's not necessarily attached to, it's not really a prequel. It's just kind of like a standalone franchise of movies. And I think that's a good way to go. You can do a lot more. You have a lot more freedom to work with that sort of narrative than if you're trying to tie everything into what happens 70 years down the line. So yeah, I'm stoked. I'm excited to be able to go back into this world. I've said before that if I had the opportunity to like use the Men in Black flashy thing and erase the books from my memory and then go back and read them again and do it over and over again, I would totally do that. So I'm a total Harry Potter nerd, and I'm excited to be back in that film world.
So what is the source material for these? Is there a source material, or is it just going to be made up as they go along, or what's the deal here?
So at the height of the books, or excuse me, at the height of the movies, some publisher, and I don't know which publisher. Some publisher did a series of sort of spin-off books that were like textbooks within the world of Harry Potter, the movies / the books. Does that make sense? Like,
right.
In the third film, for instance, Harry's classroom set of books is this like huge monstrous book that has its own, like, it's kind of alive and it tries to like bite him and stuff. So that's one. And there's a couple others like that. This one will be, what's it called? Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I believe that's a book somewhere within the Harry Potter universe. And I think this one may be one of the ones that was published. But it's kind of I've never read them. They're kind of throwaway, I think, for kids sort of thing. So I think there's like, she has that to work from, but I imagine it'll be pretty much all original material. Hopefully
it's as good as Beetle the Bard.
Yeah, like that? Yeah, that's another one. Yeah. Which I had never read, but that's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I can get on board with this. I can see a reason to make these movies. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean,
like with a lot of these franchises, especially, it's just some of them seem so pointless.
Yeah,
and stuff. And I think Harry Potter is definitely one of the most iconic franchises of our time, at least. It just happened at a time where I wasn't seeing a lot of movies, to be honest. And I was a little bit too old to read the books at the time, I feel like. So it just literally just passed me by. I was so preoccupied with like Star Wars prequels and like Lord of the Rings movies and stuff that it seriously just passed me by. But I'm going to make it a point to see the rest of the Harry Potter films.
You're in for a treat.
I'll report back to you guys on that. That's for sure.
Please. And this is always my rant about the thing they have to be careful of is you don't want to obviously hurt the legacy of the books as well as the legacy of the films. And I don't think this will. But I never understood it with Stephenie Meyer. Like, I totally understood why J.K. Rowling quit writing Harry Potter books, because you don't want to just drown them on forever, because they actually were respected critically and they were kind of important, at least pop books for our time. But I don't understand why Stephenie Meyer stopped writing books, because everyone hated those books except for 14-year-old girls. And it's like, well, at least just keep making money.
Yeah.
Like, what? If you write 600 Twilight books, it's not going to diminish Twilight.
Right.
It's already awful. So at least cash in. I never understood this.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, that's
kind of a tangential argument there.
No, I totally get what you're saying, and that's true. Well, that's exciting news. I'm sure a lot of Harry Potter fans are listening to this and are jumping out of their chairs right now. So do we have a timeline on this, or what's the deal?
I think 16 or 17 is the first one.
Okay.
Hopefully not 15.
No, it won't be 15. It's 16, I think, is the earliest.
So it's a trilogy of films?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, awesome. That excites me, and that gives me an excuse to go back and watch Harry Potter without feeling like a total loser. So I'll do that for sure. Brian, do you have anything to bring to the table for movie news?
I got a small thing that since it's been a slow week. We all struggled kind of to find stuff to talk about. But so our good friend Mel Gibson looks like he's trying to take a page out of the Liam Neeson book. Like he's going to be in Expendables 3 later this year, and I'm pretty stoked about that. Not going to lie.
Yeah.
He's in the Machete movies, which I've never seen and don't really have any desire to see. But it looks like he's headed towards a movie called Bloodfather, which sounds awesome just to begin with. I'm going to read you the descriptor. It said, Bloodfather would see Gibson as an ex-con who must rebuild bridges with his wayward 16-year-old daughter when drug dealers mark her for death.
What?
It's directed by a French guy whose name I certainly can't pronounce, so I won't attempt.
Brian, the sad part about this, though, is it's literal. Like, they're actually building bridges. So it's not as exciting.
A lot of masonry work.
Yeah, it's not emotional at all. It's just a lot of welding and masonry. So,
that sounds exciting to me.
Yeah, it could be fun.
Like that Ken Burns Brooklyn Bridge documentary.
Not the best of Ken Burns' works.
No.
Anyway, this I am kind of excited about this. Have you guys seen Get the Gringo?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I haven't. No, I know what it is, and
It's
I've
on
heard good
Netflix,
things,
Kent, and it's worth watching. I don't know that it's really a good movie, but it is heck of a lot of fun to watch Mel Gibson kind of A, go back to his action star roots, but B, kind of tie into his darker side. Like, that's a really dark, gritty movie, and it's kind of awesome to watch Gibson in that kind of role. So anyway, that if this comes out right, if it goes the Taken path, hopefully Taken 1, not Taken 2, with Gibson, this is a pretty solid opportunity for him to kind of reinvent or maybe repair a little bit of his box office draw ability, if not his reputation, I would say.
Brian, I kind of put Gibson in the category that we put like Jim Carrey in.
Okay.
There's definitely a place for him in Hollywood. And there has been, in the past. So the question is, like, where is Mel Gibson going to fit in this new age of cinema and these new age of stars? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, maybe this Expendables 3 will give him the boost he needs to return to his glory days of Braveheart and The Patriot and so on. So, yeah, it's interesting to hear that news because I'm a Gibson fan. And I want the best for him, and I think he's one of my favorite action stars, that's for sure. But it's like a lot of people thought he was going to make a comeback a few years ago with like that movie The Beaver. Remember that with Jodie Foster and Jennifer Lawrence?
Yeah.
Never really.
Whoa, Jennifer Lawrence was in that?
Yeah, it's one of her first movies.
Wow.
So
right before that came out, he had another meltdown though, and so he got sent away once again.
Sure. That's true.
And he had Edge of Darkness right before that as well, which people thought was going to be I thought was going to be a bigger hit, and it was not. No, I'm with you. I think there's a place for Mel Gibson in Hollywood if he can find it and if he can keep his personal craziness, sort of hidden and stop letting it get out in public and in voicemail form and such.
I heard some news, speaking of Expendables, I heard some news regarding the Expendables 4, which are already planning out. And the news is that the only Pierce Brosnan is attached to the Expendables 4.
Wow. So
it seems like with these movies, they're like, we can make each one less and less macho than the one before. Like half of these guys are borderline not action stars. Like Expendables 3 has Kelsey Grammer. Like no joke, as one of the top people on there. Best known for his role as Fraser Crane on a sitcom.
I'm excited for Expendables 8 with figure skater Johnny Weir.
Something we haven't mentioned, guys, and it's surprising because this news broke a few weeks ago, at least maybe a month ago or so. NBC, in a total desperation move to stay relevant in the world, has renewed Heroes for another season.
Did we not talk about this?
We have not. No. I want to get your thoughts, Brian.
Is it still on?
No,
it's
okay.
They're rebooting it, bringing it back.
Gosh.
So the working title is Heroes Reborn, and I'm sure this is just a response to Fox's 24 Live Another Day.
Yeah,
which
except
is premiering
the exact
this summer.
180 of that. Jeez.
I wasn't a big Heroes fan. I'd seen probably half a dozen episodes or so I never really got totally on board with what they were doing. But Brian, you obviously seem very emotional about this, so give us your thoughts.
Season 1 of Heroes, for the first 18 or 19 episodes, I want to say, is really good and is a really fun show to watch. It's got a lot of darkness to it, but done in a very almost a comic booky way, and so it's fun. More than almost a comic book, definitely a comic booky way. But it's I don't know. It's just a classic example of this should not have been more than one season. It should have just been a standalone, because by the time they get to the end of season 1, it was so successful that they knew they had to go into season 2 with some momentum. So they basically changed the entire concept of the season, pushed it into a season 2 where nothing happened, and then the writer's strike took place and just completely took its legs out from under it, and it was awful from there. I did not watch the end of season 2. I watched an episode or two of season 3 and hated it just as much as I did season 2, and I gave up on it. But this is not the sort of thing that the people are dying for. Let's just say,
yeah,
this is a very, in my opinion, very stereotypical NBC move of watching what other networks do and thinking, oh, well, we can do that, but then completely missing the point.
In a related story, CBS is bringing back Designing Women. So another reboot of a classic.
It's full of Designing Women.
I looked up what network it was on. Don't worry.
The most surprising thing is, with all this, or actually not surprising considering it's NBC, but can anyone in LA, there are how many millions of people in LA? Can one freaking person in LA think of an idea? Is that possible anymore? Can one person think of an idea? I just don't. You would think with all the millions of dollars that they spend on talent acquisition, R&D, and stuff like that, you would think they could come up with a decent idea. Every single show on NBC lately is just garbage.
And they spend so much money.
Yeah.
So much money. So much money.
With the resources that they have, it's incredible. It's honestly dumbfounding.
To make a pilot, it can cost sometimes $2 to $5 million.
Yeah.
And then they'll just be like, meh, and dump it. Yeah. And no one ever sees it.
Yeah. That's true. It seems like the choices they make are just terrible. Why would they think that Sean Hayes would have this big resurgence? I just don't understand.
Yeah, that's the thing.
What polls are they giving people? What results are they getting? That's like, man, I just really think Sean Hayes is gonna do it for us this time.
Well, it's the problem with the that's what's it called with the focus grouping it, because they focus group stuff. Well, guess who's available for focus groups? Unemployed people who are wandering around the mall at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Right. And
then they go in and they go, well, I love Sean Hayes. I'm a big fan. And they go, well, we got to get Sean Hayes in here. Yeah. And then no one else watches it.
No, that's true. And it's disappointing. It's honestly just confusing most of all.
The thing with NBC is they can't figure out what they want to be. Like they want to be CBS, but they're not willing to go full bore into CBS like material.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of perpetually stuck in, they want to do higher minded stuff, but the higher minded stuff doesn't get the ratings that CBS's shows do. So how do you balance those two things? And instead of trying to balance it, they end up just sabotaging themselves over and over and over again, and then saying, well, but we got The Voice, so they're in a bad way. It's pretty bad. Did you guys read the Andy Greenwald column from, it may have been several months ago now?
How we fix it.
Yeah. And he was pretty spot on. And then right after he put that sort of thing out, then they announced this Heroes reboot, and you're like, no, you didn't get it. You just don't understand.
It just makes no sense, because obviously in the 90s, NBC was a huge deal, early 2000s even, before Friends went off the air and Frasier, and so
Friends killed NBC.
But even then, like for the past, from 1990 until 2005, there was some sort of like creative workflow there.
Yeah.
That they just, everything that they put on the air seemed to work. And like all that has been abandoned in the past 10 years. And like even ABC, who usually is struggling to survive, even they see like, okay, well, nothing we're doing is working. So we're going to go invest our time and money in intellectual property. Right. And we're going to get Star Wars, we're going to get Marvel, and we're going to invest in these characters that people know and love and build things around them. Like NBC doesn't have any foresight to...
But they have Disney behind. I mean, ABC has that Disney.
NBC has Universal behind them. NBC is just like,
well, it's Comcast now.
Yeah, it's just as big as the four. I mean, they have no competitive disadvantage than any of them. If anything, they have an advantage over all these people, because they have the highest rated show on TV, which is Sunday Night Football, to launch all these programs, and The Voice and stuff like that. And it's just, they can't get one thing that sticks. And like, honestly, The Blacklist is probably the only decent thing on NBC anymore. Like Parks and Rec is great, but nobody watches it.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how this Heroes reboot sort of affects what they do over the next couple of years.
Unfortunately, a lot of the people with NBC that were at least making mediocre decisions in the mid 2000s were involved with the Leno Conan cluster.
Yeah.
And so they all lost their jobs because of how bad they messed that up. And now they didn't really have a second string behind them. And I think that's really hurt, because they lashed out and kind of fired everyone after that whole Leno debacle. And you can argue whether or not that was justified, but then you're kind of out all your executives. And one of them was the guy, I'm blanking on his name, but the guy that really championed The Office, which is probably one of the biggest hits of, he's single-handedly saved The Office.
Kevin Riley, I think.
Yeah, he's over at Fox now.
Fox,
yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting times there. It's definitely cyclical. They're not going to run out of money.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they've got to figure. You're right, Brian. It's a total identity crisis.
Right. Worst thing about NBC on the comedy front is that they just keep letting their talent go. That's what would kill me if I was an NBC investor, so to speak. The letting Mindy Kaling walk, letting John Mulaney walk, letting Andy Samberg walk, letting Michael Schur walk, like all these people who, like, Mindy Project is not by any means like kill in the ratings, and it's not a great show by any means, but it's better than Sean Saves the World and all these other terrible shows that they keep throwing out there. You can't tell me that you couldn't build, at the very least, a more well-respected block of television. If your block was Parks and Recreation, Community, Mindy Project, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, look, that's not going to tear up the ratings, but you're going to win awards. You're going to have something to hang your hat on, if nothing else. And right now, they don't have either of those things. They're not getting critical reception because they keep burying the two shows that do well for them on that front that are good are Community and Parks and Recreation, and they do everything they can to kill them every single year. So they've got to find a way to stop letting talent walk out the door completely scot-free, while they're continuing to try to chase nostalgia of Sean Hayes and Michael J. Fox and whatever else.
They're bringing back Bill Cosby this year, too. So. No joke.
I mean, it's man, they're in a bad way. And it's sad because, like you said, Kent, NBC is at least for me, that's where I kind of got my TV chops, was NBC stuff. And they still have SNL, which is still, to me, the most important comedic show on television. But they are in a bad way, and it's sad to see.
What do you think the chances are if Myers does well, and I'm serious about this, if Myers does well and this new late night proves to be kind of an anchor afterwards, they keep doing well in late night, Fallon maybe wins a ratings thing, Myers does well. I'm serious, what were the odds that they would just be like, Lauren, here are the keys?
Yeah,
I could see him putting him in an executive role, not CEO or anything like that, or president of NBC, just because.
But president, what if they put him as vice president of programming? Sure,
I think that'll work, and I think they trust Lauren for comedy. But there's a whole nother aspect of drama that they have to deal with.
There's a rule of show business where you tend not to bet against Lorne Michael. Right. Conan made that mistake when he moved to LA and didn't take Lauren with him. So I think, I don't know, at least, that's really their only asset right now is Lorne Michaels and that whole in the machine that Lorne Michaels represents.
Right.
No, I 100% agree. And I would be down with Lauren taking over NBC. I think that would ultimately work better in the long run. It would probably change their identity a lot. They would have to rely more on comedic series that they probably don't want to do because they're not a huge comedic network. I would say Fox is probably, especially with this new Will Forte show and some of the stuff they're going to be doing this fall. Yeah. Fox has really held their own as far as
Fox
comedy.
Is my favorite network now in terms of stuff I watch, which I don't like admitting, but
sure. Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting to see, and we'll have to see how this Heroes reboot does. There's a chance that it'll be gone after a few episodes. It won't even stick long enough to live out the tenure of its season. So we'll see. I think this will have huge implications on where NBC goes from here on out. That's why I felt it was applicable to bring up today. So
definitely.
Hey, what's up, Ma'am Fam? Kent here. And yes, if you're hearing from me, you know it's time to talk about Blue Apron. If you haven't tried out Blue Apron by now, what the heck are you even doing? Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. They deliver fresh meals straight to your door. All the food is fresh, it's sourced from local farms, and there's no wasted ingredients. I've been a Blue Apron subscriber for a long time now, and they have still, to this day, never let me down. There's tons of variety. Some featured upcoming meals include summer vegetable and egg paninis, soy glazed pork and rice cakes, skillet vegetable chili with cheddar drop biscuits, holy crap, and garlic butter shrimp and corn with green bean salad. So take it from me. Try out Blue Apron now. Go to blueapron.com/mad. That's blueapron.com/mad. Get 3 meals on us for free. Nothing goes better with a movie than dinner. So check out Blue Apron, blueapron.com/mad. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Hey, Ma'am Fam, question for you. Do you own a small business, or are you a boss? Are you looking to hire awesome people, but you just can't find somebody to fill that role? Well, let me tell you about ZipRecruiter.com. With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to 100+ job sites, all with one click. In fact, over 80% of jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them. Right now, you can post your jobs for free on ZipRecruiter by going to ZipRecruiter.com/mad. That's ZipRecruiter.com/mad. One more time, try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/mad. Thanks to ZipRecruiter for supporting this episode of the Mad About Movies podcast. Good stuff, guys. Well, you guys want to move on and let's talk about Noah?
A great flood is coming. We build a vessel to survive the storm. We build an ark. What do you want? You don't know your king. There isn't anything for you here.
I have men at my back, and you stand alone and defy me?
I'm not alone.
Brian Gill, I'm going to have you kick things off for this discussion. And just give us your overall thoughts of Noah. Give us your argument if you have any. I'm sure that this is a quite controversial movie for a lot of different reasons. So give us your overall thoughts of Noah and how you feel about the movie. Yeah, I feel like I should reiterate, just in case we have had a lot of new listeners over the last few weeks. So I always like to be clear of my biases or my, what I represent when I'm here. But I work for a church and I am I'm very devoted to my faith. Movies like this generally put me in a bad position because like I said, I'm very devoted to my spirituality and I've always been very open about that, but I do love film and I don't understand why those two things can't seem to get along. But that's usually how it goes. So movies like this, anytime that you're going to have a biblical interpretation, I end up just having like this overwhelming like sense of dread because I know that I kind of sit in the middle between these two worlds, as it were, and in a situation like this, I feel like I'm just getting bashed on both sides of it. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. I don't. So it's not a fun position for me. I would be happy if Hollywood and church would make a deal to just like, we're just not going to do any more movies that have anything to do with the Bible. That would make me thrilled. And both sides of that, I would really like to stop having movies like Fireproof and God's Not Dead and those sorts of things as well. So all that to say, I come at this movie from perhaps a different perspective than maybe the average moviegoer, and I would say certainly the average movie critic, and it's an uncomfortable spot for me to be in. But so I want to address one thing fast, and then I'm going to go into the movie if that's cool. As an adaptation, I think that this movie leaves a lot to be desired for what I would do if I was making a movie about the story of Noah. But I want to make it clear that I don't feel like there's, again, on that level, just from an adaptation standpoint, I don't know that there's anything in here, at least I didn't find anything, to be truly unbiblical. And I don't want this to turn into a Bible discussion because that's not what we're here to do. And I totally, understand that, obviously. But man, people were getting up in arms about the lack of biblicality, which is not a word, but I'm going to use it anyway, from this movie. And my thought on that, and I wrote a piece about this for my blog today, and I'll push people towards it at the end of the show. But my thought on
quit pushing your religion on me, buddy.
All right, sorry. I'll stop Tim Tebowing in a second here, but no, my feeling is that I don't know why we have to get so up in arms about stuff that really. This is a lot of things that were open to interpretation. I went back and read my Bible this weekend, and
it's 89 verses of scripture that tell this entire story, and the story takes place over 100 years. So there's a lot that even if you believe that everything in the Bible is 100% true, there's a lot left out, right? Like we don't know what's happening on the ark, or we don't know that there wasn't an army that tried to take the ark over, things like that. So that's my soapbox on that front. I don't know why we can't just accept an adaptation as an adaptation, just almost the same way that we would, like, in a lot of ways, the Harry Potter books or the story of Argo, or whatever it is.
Right.
So that's where I'm at from that front. As a movie, I think there's a lot that I wasn't that impressed by this film as a whole. There's like these moments of greatness that I really loved and started to really fall in love with, and then it's just kind of shrouded in a lot of stuff that didn't really work for me and felt there's a lot of heavy-handedness at times. I thought the first like 10 or 15 minutes were bad, were genuinely bad. It took me a long time to get into this. And then most of the stuff taking place on the ark, I felt like was very contrived and a little bit melodramatic, being played really hard. And I wasn't a huge fan of that. Basically, I feel like this is a movie that tried really hard to bridge the gap and kind of ride the fence between the Christian right and the liberal left, and it ends up just being kind of a muddled experience for me personally. So that's a long-winded, I apologize, way to say all that. There's parts that I really like about this movie, and parts that I could have easily done without, and I'm not sure that it all comes together the way that Aronofsky would have liked it to, personally.
Richard Martin, thoughts?
Yeah, to kind of jump on what Brian was saying, blaspheming, I would say. No, but Brian, I couldn't agree more. I have this theory, I think there are Christians that just want to be angry about stuff, and there are atheists that just want to be angry about stuff, and there are Muslims that just want to be angry about stuff. There are Republicans that just want to be angry about stuff. There are Democrats that just want to be angry about stuff. There are people that just want to be angry. So when something is loosely affiliated with their team, whether it be Christianity or politics or whatever that is, in this film, I shouldn't even say Christianity, because I was telling you guys, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people call this a Christian movie, because this took place thousands of years before the birth of Christ, and is a pillar story in the three world religions, right? But I think there's just a certain sect of people in every group that just wants to be pissed about something,
right? And
you run into these people all the time, and they're maddening, and they just are constantly looking for something to whine about.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to step on toes here. Maybe there are certain things within the text that people legitimately have argument with. But my interpretation is that, as far as the uproar around this movie, I think a studio could make really any Christian movie. They could literally have someone go on and recite the text of the Bible, and there would be people that were upset about the tone in which they did.
Yes.
This will always happen. And that's not like I said, not exclusively Christian thing. You could, I'm sure there's a sect of atheist scientists that are annoyed at something Cosmos is doing on Fox right now. I mean, right? So these people exist. It's one of the great gifts of humankind. So that is my kind of piece on the controversy, so to speak. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm not completely convinced that a lot of it wasn't drummed up by whoever the studio is on this. I don't remember. Okay, all of that being said, this movie was, to quote Moriarty from Sherlock, so boring. Like, just boring. It wasn't bad, really. It was just boring. And I couldn't... Brian, it got off to a boring start, and there was some boring stuff in the middle, and there was a boring end. It was well made in certain parts. just the script was just like such a yawn fest. You know, there's some cool action sequences, kind of, but not nearly enough of them. Mostly it's just people walking around talking in sort of this melodramatic British way, which is never really fully explained. But nor should it be, right? But yeah, so that would be my review. I mean, for such, has there ever been a more boring piece of art that inspired such controversy? I don't think there ever has been. I mean, this movie was just flat, and it was fine. I mean, like, and the story of Noah is obviously a wonderful, either however you choose to view it, factual historical tale, or even just a parable to teach you to stay true to some sort of virtue, whether that be God or whatever it is. Whatever your interpretation of that is, I am not one to judge. But it's not necessarily a very thematic story. It doesn't lend itself to film as is. So he drummed up some stuff. Right, Brian, he colored in the lines. He filled in some blanks. He had some armies attack and things like that.
Right.
And it was still boring, except for these kind of things. It's just, I don't think it's necessary. There's plenty of, there's a story in Judges called Shamgar, and it's a one-sentence story, and Shamgar kills like 450 Philistines with something called an ox goad. And I think that would be an awesome Samuel L. Jackson movie that I would watch.
Right.
But Noah is, I don't know, kind of it's more, it's a children's story about really staying true to something that they try to drum up. And it just, to me, it bored me. But that's kind of my, again, I tried to top your running time, Brian, and outspeak you. So, Kent, you have 30 seconds.
Sure, guys. Well, so I was already kind of on a Darren Aronofsky, like, binge watching craze before I saw this movie, just to sort of prepare myself and so I could maybe compare Noah to some of his other films. And so having said that, I was psychologically suicidal going into this movie. Yeah, having watched 4 days of Aronofsky films.
Yeah. But he didn't want to watch Harry Potter.
Yeah. That would have done a lot worse to me. I'm sure. So this that was where my mind was going into it, and I was wondering how much he was going to rely on his sort of trademarks to tell this story. And we get a little bit of his, signature style during the dream sequence when Noah has the vision of the flood at the beginning, where they're telling the story of the Garden of Eden, and you see the lizards crawling across the ground. And there's several sequences that they use his signature editing style to great effect that I enjoyed.
And the dream concept in general, right? I mean, a lot of his movies have some sort of dream phenomenon in them.
Right. So I was happy to see that, and I was happy to see him use his skills in a decent way in this. I thought he was going to make it too psychological, and I don't feel like he did that here. I agree with you guys. The first 10 to 15 minutes, the first act is so boring. The dialogue in general is terrible. Russell Crowe is awful in this. I hated Noah. I wasn't really rooting for Noah that much at all, especially at the end when he becomes like this demon, basically. And so there's a lot of controversy about, like, the Bible doesn't say, the Bible, God chose favor in Noah. And people didn't feel like that the movie expressed God's favor in Noah. Like that Noah was the chosen one, and that everything would be okay despite all the stuff that's going on around Noah while he's building the ark. Like, a lot of people felt, in my circle of acquaintances at least, that he wasn't represented well in this, or biblically well in this, accurately. And I went back like you did, Brian. As soon as I watched this movie, I came back and I read the first however many chapters of Genesis. I think it's like chapters 1 through 12, which is basically the creation story.
Right.
So I went back and read that, and you're right. There are so many sentences there that's just like, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and then 100, and then 100, the water sat for 100 days, and then Noah came out of the ark. Like, there's nothing in between from when it starts, the flood starts, until when it ends. And so a lot of that is just Aronofsky trying to make this a movie,
Yeah.
And so people you just can't get too upset because he didn't change anything. He didn't put anything that wasn't there. He's just making assumptions about what might have happened in certain situations, which I can get on board with. And a lot of the problems I have with this movie, you just have to say to yourself, this is just merely one person's interpretation of this story. It's an interpretation more than it is an adaptation, I think. Like, everybody had in their mind going into this movie what they wanted it to be.
Yeah.
They just did. Whether you believe in the Bible or not, you know that what you think in your mind happened if the Noah's Ark story is in fact true. So a lot of the stuff that people complained about, you just have to realize that this is an interpretation and that Aronofsky did spend his time in research on the Bible. And I assure you, if you go back and you look at certain scenes, that it'll be hard to make an argument against a lot of them because, like I said, it's all up to interpretation. And a lot of people had problems with the Watchers and the way the Watchers were interpreted as rock. I heard the word Transformers.
Yeah, that's not a bad. Yeah, I kind of thought that at one point.
And they'll be like, well, there was no mention of the Watchers in the Book of Genesis, etc. But there is a book it's not an official book of the Bible by Catholic Church standards or anything like that. The Book of Enoch.
Yeah.
And if you go back and read the Book of Enoch, which was discovered, years later,
right after the canon of the Bible,
the Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff like that. If you go back and read that, there's so much info about the Watchers and about Noah's lifestyle and things like that that are justified by Aronofsky's interpretation here. So I think a lot of the stuff is people remembering the story a certain way and assuming that the way that they remember it is the correct way, and they're not open to the possibility that maybe it didn't happen like they thought it happened. Do you know what I mean? So the question is, above the controversy, above the bad dialogue, does this work as a film?
Yeah.
Does Aronofsky's adaptation interpretation work as a movie? I would say it works 65% of the time. There is parts of it that could easily be removed that would make no difference to me. But there are parts like the action sequences and the building of the ark itself and the actual, when the flood actually comes and everything, that I thought were executed perfectly, beautifully. I think certainly that Aronofsky has potential as a big blockbuster director after seeing this, given the right material. He did pass on the Wolverine, the James Mangold Wolverine, which came out last year, and Man of Steel to make this film. So it's interesting to think what Wolverine or Man of Steel could have been had Aronofsky done that. He by the way, he just didn't like the direction of Man of Steel, so that's why he didn't do it. So there was a huge red flag. We should have realized that when Aronofsky dropped out. We should have realized it wasn't going to be any good. But that's a story for another day. But does this work as a movie? That's the question I want to ask you guys. Brian, does this work as a movie for you?
My feeling about that question is kind of like I guess like a microcosm of the whole movie. Like I'm right on the fence of how effective I think the movie is, how good I think it is. There are, like I said, man, there are some moments that are really stinking good. I liked like you said, I liked the building of the ark. I loved the flood actually like breaking out. Like that was a really cool thing. There's some great sequences. The Watchers or the Nephilim or whatever you want to call them that was a cool way to go with it. Again, that wouldn't be my own interpretation if I was making this movie, but I got that. It was fine. I thought it was kind of cool. Personally, and again, I know that this reflects my own upbringing and where I'm at in my station of life, but maybe my favorite part in the whole movie was right after they get on the ark and they're sitting down with the family and Noah basically like reads the creation like straight out of the Bible.
That was my favorite sequence.
I thought that was a spectacular and very powerful way to illustrate that. And I'm down with that part, but there's just so much that could have been cut. Really, not even could have been cut. I just didn't care about a lot of the stuff that took place, and I did think it was poorly acted. I don't know what we do with Russell Crowe, and we kind of talked about this a little bit off the air in our text messages today, but Russell Crowe is like for me, he's not charismatic enough and important enough to be like a real leading man of a good movie or a great movie, but he's also a little too big to be a supporting character. So I don't really know. I don't think Hollywood knows what to do with him, and I don't know what to do with him either. He's great in Gladiator. He's great in The Insider.
You know who he hates is Liam Neeson, because he could totally be like Taken guy and be fine.
It's hard for me watching a Russell Crowe movie to. I always get distracted, and it's not just with this movie. It's with pretty much any Russell Crowe movie. I find myself distracted by trying to figure out what to do with Russell Crowe. So anyway, I didn't think he was that great in this film, and I think there was a lot of acting that was okay or mediocre. The dialogue is so bad at times, painfully bad at times.
Can I hop in real quick?
Yeah,
because I want to talk about something that you guys always talk about that I never do. The score of this movie was terrible.
Yeah,
did you guys notice that? It's like in D minor. It's at the same key for like the whole. I don't know. I found it really not dynamic. Undynamic for it.
Yeah,
I think there were cues that I noticed that I enjoyed, but as a score overall, not a good score. Certainly not up to the not up to the potential it had. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
Like this should have been the most epic score of all time.
Right.
Like there's not a more epic story than this. Than God's wiping out mankind and one man surviving it all with every animal from the earth on a boat. There's not a more epic story. So if the score doesn't equal that, I feel like that's a failure. So I can say, that it did not live up to its potential for sure, Richard. That's a good point. That I wouldn't have.
Another disappointment I have, and I didn't follow a lot of the controversy too closely, but I thought this was going to be a biopic of Joachim Noah. And when I got to the theater, I was really confused.
Nice.
Because I didn't see any Billy Donovan.
Sequel to Thunderstruck. Yeah. Greatness.
Would people be more angry watching that than this? I would come out angry.
Joachim Noah would make sure they were, because that's how he gets his joy in life.
He would just stand outside the theater and mock people as they came out. You like my life story? I bet you didn't. Ha ha.
What did you guys? Dad's just crazy rich.
What did you guys think of the subplots? Like the Shem looking for a wife subplot, the
lame.
The villain on the boat subplot. A lot of it was very forced. I felt like, especially the villain on the boat.
Yeah.
Aspect. But there was not a lot to be excited about other than the visuals here, and that's what I left. Impressed with was the visuals. And you can compare this movie to a movie of Aronofsky's like The Fountain, where there are biblical, it's biblically based, I guess, and there is certainly different interpretations you can make. And the visuals in the Fountain are spectacular, especially the last scene in The Fountain. If you haven't seen it, go see that movie. But The Fountain actually had like stuff to talk about other than the visuals, like there's this whole psychological aspect of The Fountain and of Aronofsky's other films that, make it a great film. He doesn't rely strictly on visuals or action or sympathy towards characters. It seems like all his characters are so perfectly crafted in all his other movies. And this was just, oh, you have a script about Noah? Well, let's fix it up and make a movie about it. Because like, he was inspired to make this movie by like his 7th grade teacher who inspired or told him to write a story about Noah when he was in 7th grade. So he wrote a short story about Noah, and his teacher said, wow, that's really good. And so that's what made him want to do a movie about Noah as soon as he started making movies. And so this is obviously a passion project for Aronofsky. I just wonder why he didn't do a better job, or why it's not better. And you got to think maybe it's because he didn't want to make it too preachy. Yes, or something. He wanted to play it as safe as he possibly could for a mass audience, but I think that ultimately worked against him here.
I agree, and I think that's the biggest downfall of the whole movie is that it doesn't have the balls.
Doesn't have a message really
to go full all the way with it. I think the biggest issue here is that Aronofsky got mixed up with a big budget studio. Does that make sense? Like, I think he excels, and I'm not a huge Aronofsky fan. I don't love a lot of his work. The Wrestler is probably my favorite movie, and I think that's usually the one that like big time Aronofsky fans aren't that into. But I think he's at his best when he just gets to do his thing and do what he wants to do. And they clearly had all kinds of wrestling back and forth with how to do this movie. And so I don't know, honestly, like I don't know how much of it you're getting in this film that is Aronofsky's vision versus what he kind of had to put in there because Paramount really went after the Christian audience hard. Like they took this like a 2-minute clip of this film to a bunch of like Christian festivals and stuff and leadership conferences across America last summer or maybe last spring, and really baited the Christian groups to come out for it. So I don't know that I know that he did not have final say over the final cut. I think they went with his cut, but I would imagine that there was some major conflict on how to bridge the gap between what he wanted and what the studio was asking from him. And I think that comes out in the film. Like I said at the beginning, I think that this tries too hard to straddle the line between two worlds and it that don't get along, at least in terms of this material.
It seems as if he's just using this movie to show the world and to show a studio that, hey, I can make a big blockbuster type movie. And this doesn't feel like an Aronofsky movie to me. All. It just doesn't. It just feels so out of place. And I want him to go back to making his type of movies, you know?
And say what you want about him, but he's incredibly ambitious and philosophical filmmaker, and this had no philosophy to it.
That's
really.
What I mean.
It wasn't deep at all. Yeah. There's no depth to it. It's just kind of a movie. No, I think you're absolutely right. If you were to tell me someone, a big Hollywood director was making a biblical film, I'm with you, Brian. I tend to think a lot of times those two worlds don't mix well. But if you told me it was Aronofsky, and this did happen a year or two ago when this was announced, I was like, okay, he'll have something to say with it. The biggest disappointment about this movie is it really has nothing to say.
Agreed.
In any direction.
There's no aspect of faith exercised here, and I feel like that's the main point of the Noah story, is that Noah had faith through people calling him crazy, through, oh my God, why am I building an ark? I didn't feel like God had control of Noah on this, or that Noah trusted God or whatever. And that's the main message that I wanted to get across, was that despite everything, if you have faith in God, everything will be fine, you know? And that message was butchered in this movie, where Noah sort of felt like it was his responsibility to pick and choose for himself who gets on the ark and who can survive. And he just became so demonic, like I said earlier at the end. And it just didn't leave on a bright like note that inspired me, you know? It didn't have the message. I agree, Richard. It didn't have the message that it needed to have, or that I expected it to have, knowing Aronofsky's past films. So where does this rank with you guys as far as Aronofsky's films go? Is this dead last for you, or?
I will admit I haven't seen Pi. I think that's the only one I haven't seen.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
And so I'm trying to think.
Pi is good. Pi is sort of like a Dogma 95, like a surrealistic look at mathematics, if that makes sense, and numerology. I mean, it's very well done. It was made for like a couple $1,000 or something.
Yeah, no, I've heard nothing but incredible things about it. I just, like you with Harry Potter, I haven't gotten to it. Requiem's great, but I never ever want to see it again.
Yeah.
Black Swan. Black Swan's better
The Wrestler?
than this. I love The Wrestler. I'm with Brian. Wrestler's probably my favorite. Yeah, I would say this is probably, as far as just technically speaking, script, acting, performances, the kind of least. I would put it this way. I don't know if it's the worst. It's the least interesting movie he's ever made.
Yeah, sure.
There's a good cop-out answer for you.
Yeah.
Man, I'm just worried about these other movies that are coming out. This Exodus movie and whatever. I just hope somebody can bring something to the table with these, or that somebody can do these stories justice on a psychological level. Because I know they can all do them justice on a special effects level, because we've seen that. I'm not worried about that. I just want there to be more to these movies than just a great popcorn flick. You know what I'm saying? But I will say that some of the action sequences in this were outstanding, and I was floored by how good some of it was, especially when the flood comes and they close the gates and the people are storming the Ark, and the Watchers are like fighting off the people and stuff. I thought that was extremely well done, and there are very haunting images in the movie, such as Noah sitting on the Ark by himself during the flood, and in complete silence, and just hearing the screams of the people outside the Ark. I thought that was well done. I thought the aerial shot of the Earth during the flood, with this Earth covered in hurricanes, was really a good look. And there are visual aspects that Aronofsky absolutely nailed. And there's a scene where Noah and his wife are speaking, and it's like in silhouette. You know what I'm talking about. And the sky is like blue and orange. It's absolutely a gorgeous shot. A lot of this was really well done, but overall it just didn't do it for me. So what are your guys' grades for Noah? Brian?
I'm gonna go with a B-. I'm
gonna go the same way, B-. Richard?
I'm gonna go C+.
Cool. Well, definitely a disappointment considering this is Aronofsky. And like I said, hopefully his next movie, he sort of returns to his roots a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if a Hollywood studio gives him a huge, big project after this. I know Justice League is still seeking a director, so don't count Aronofsky out for Justice League. And hopefully he does more Aronofsky-type stuff coming up. I want every other movie, please. Just give us something that we can associate with your other films. That would be great. So any other thoughts on Noah, guys, before we move on?
Nope.
No? Cool. All right, guys. Let's move on and let's do Weekly Recommends.
Weekly Recommends.
So this week for Weekly Recommends, guys, I'm going to try to recommend something that's applicable to what's currently going on in entertainment. Season 4 of The Walking Dead just wrapped up last night with the season finale on AMC, and it drew the most people ever in history of cable television for a series finale with over 15 million viewers. And so, in that same vein, I want to recommend the graphic novel of The Walking Dead by Robert Kirkman, which is the source material for The Walking Dead television series / video games. And it's absolutely a masterpiece of comics. If you're into graphic novels or comics or anything like that, it's an awesome read. It's a quick read. I'm going to suggest particularly Compendium 1 of The Walking Dead. It covers issues 1 through 48, I believe, of the comic series, which if you sort of parallel that to the television series, I believe it's like midway, not quite midway through season 4. So if you read the Compendium 1, you'll be pretty caught up as far as The Walking Dead in the comics. But it's interesting to see how they juxtapose the comics with the TV show, because a lot of the plot lines are the same, but they're different. Like something will happen to somebody in the comic book, but that same thing will happen to somebody completely different in the series. Does that make sense? So like a lot of the plot lines are the same, but you just don't know who that plot line is going to happen to in the series. They really mix it up. And so it's cool to look back after you've seen up to season 4, if you have, and to sort of see how different they made it from the comics and sort of how they're basing the show on the comics. And so you can sort of, in your own mind, predict where you think they're going to go moving forward. And it's a really quick read, like I said. Compendium 1 is about 1,000 pages or something, and I finished it in like less than a week or something. I just couldn't put it down. It's a really, really fun read, beautifully drawn, very descriptive. A lot of the frames are taken verbatim from the comic series. A lot of the frames from the TV show, like a lot of the scenes are the exact same setup, and the characters are the same, just with different names and stuff like that. So it's definitely a good companion to the television series. It's not going to spoil anything for you as long as you sort of try to keep up with the comics at the same rate that you're watching the show. Nothing will really get spoiled. They do a really good job of making them work together. So I'm going to suggest to the listeners and to you guys, check out the graphic novel The Walking Dead. And really cool.
On that piece, Brian, I just read it might be an April Fool's.
Okay.
But it's on Bloody Disgusting, which is a pretty good horror website, that Katherine Heigl is in talks to join season 5 of Walking Dead.
Well, now I'm done with Walking Dead, so I guess I can read the comics and see what's happening.
But that's got to be.
Please God, yeah.
There's no way. Yeah,
she's having to do like toothpaste commercials now because no one will work with her.
Oh man, that makes me hate my life. I am already like that show every week. I'm like, I'm done. No, I gotta. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm back and forth every single week. I'm just such a sucker for that sort of post-apocalyptic type of show or movie or whatever. Man, Katherine Heigl will push me over the edge, no question.
There's no way that's true. I'm gonna go ahead and deny that right now. Yeah, they go for unknowns. Like almost all the people in this show have been somewhat unknowns to the general public, at least.
They're all extras on The Wire that they've brought in.
Yeah. So Brian, recommend.
Yeah, I'm going to go super, like, not at all under the radar. I've not had time to watch much this week. I've been going through 24 most of the time and catching up on some TV as well. But one thing I've been watching, I was like 5 or 6 episodes behind on Justified. So I was cruising through that a couple of days ago. And every commercial break, because it's on FX, every commercial break featured an ad for the Fargo TV series. Which looks amazing. I'm very excited about. But with that coming up, I think it starts like April 13th or 15th or something. That's like right around the corner. With that coming up, if you have not seen Fargo, it is time for you to see the movie Fargo. And if you haven't seen Fargo in like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, it's definitely time to revisit Fargo again. So Fargo is on Netflix. We're all big Coen Brothers fans. Probably everybody that's listening to this podcast has seen that movie. But if for some reason you have not, you definitely need to make your way and get a hold of that. And if it's been a while, like it has been for me, it's probably been 2 or 3 years since I've watched it. I'm definitely planning on revisiting it before the TV series starts in a couple of weeks. So check out Fargo on the Netflix.
What's the buzz on the TV show? Like, is it supposed to be good?
It's supposed to be spectacular.
Okay.
I've heard.
Everything I've seen has been overwhelming.
The cast
positive.
is just stupid good. It's like, it's a movie quality good. It's Billy Bob Thornton with Martin Freeman, with Colin Hanks, with Adam Goldberg, with who was I going to say? Especially who I'm most excited about, Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah.
Who Bob Odenkirk in a Coen Brothers universe just really excites me. So, man, I'm super, super excited about Fargo. I don't know if you guys heard, but I spilled the news on the Calypso Cigar Review podcast that Richard and I guested on, that Fargo is my island movie. If I was to pick one movie to take on a desert island and watch forever, it would probably be Fargo. Absolute masterpiece of a movie, and great recommend. I'm going to definitely have to watch that before Fargo premieres here in a couple weeks. So
mine was 27 dresses, but get into. I guess I'll go into my weekly recommend.
Yeah, go for it.
Hey, so you guys that listen to the show regularly may know that we, Kent and Brian and I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, or the Plex, as it is affectionately called, or North Texas occasionally, or DFW, or I don't know, I'm done. But Conan's show's here this week. And first late-night show we've ever had in Dallas that I can remember. The Magic Hour did a week here, but I don't think people... But super psyched for Conan, and here the first episode was greatness. Check it out online. That was the last night as we were recording this, but we got the rest of the week. So if you are listening to this the week of April Fools, April the 1st, check out Conan in Dallas, because Dallas is a great city, and we consider ourselves ambassadors for this great city. And watch Conan.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead, and on our website, you can check out all our weekly recommends, but on yours, Richard, I'm going to link the clip to the Dirk Nowitzki video that Conan did. Dirk Nowitzki was on Conan, and he sort of did this Texas citizenship quiz, where if you pass the quiz, you can be a citizen of Texas. And it was a bit, of course, but too bad Dirk was from Germany, because total American treasure status.
That's not acceptable. We got to figure out a way to get him in.
Yeah, it'll happen. Yeah, I want to change my weekly recommend to just Dirk. Is that cool?
Good one.
The greatest thing ever in my life, except for maybe my child. I don't know. Dirk's pretty great. It's pretty close.
How many titles has your kid gotten you?
I know. True story. When you're welcome to cut this out if you want to, you can. But when the Mavs were in Game 6 of the NBA Finals in 11, and we, spoiler alert, we won the title. I was just, obviously just going crazy, just losing my mind. And my wife was like, she said something like, "I think you're like way more excited about this than you were like to get married or anything else." And I just like total deadpan was like,
"Yep.
Well, I've known them for longer, so this has been like my life's work." So
there's a video on YouTube of me going into the shower and spraying myself with champagne. I literally gave myself a champagne bath when we won the title.
That was the most awesome way to win a title. The title and just walk off the court. just leave. Didn't even show emotion on his face. So great. Dirk is 100% American treasure. That's for sure.
Yep.
Well, Brian, let me ask you, where can I find your work on the internet?
You can find my writing at canbabiesdrinkredbull.com, and you can find me on Twitter at bgill12. Richard, where can we find you?
You can find me on the Twitter at Richard Barden, B-A-R-D as in dog, O-N as in Nancy, and you can find my website at KatherineHeigelFanZone.tv. Kent, where might I find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Kent Garrison, and you can also find our show online at madaboutmoviespodcast.com. Find all of our episodes on there, all of our weekly recommends on there, and contact the show on there as well. Just click contact and fill out the form, and it goes straight to us. But on that note, guys, until next time, we will see you at the cinema.
Goodbye. See ya.
Goodbye.
The thunder rolls and the lightning strikes. Another love grows cold on a sleepless night as the storm goes on out of control. Deep in her heart, the thunder rolls.